Return of the top predator. People loved fur in the 1800s. Fur clothing was in high demand worldwide. In North America, people traveled farther and farther west to hunt and trap animals for their fur. However, the fur trade took a huge toll on wildlife. It not only affected the hunted animals' population, but it also affected entire food chains. A food chain is a group of organisms or living things linked together in the order of the food they eat. It is possible pathway that energy it is a possible pathway that energy and nutrients can follow through the ecosystem. Each organism is in an ecosystem is part of many food chains. The food chains in an ecosystem connect to form a food web. The fur trade took a toll on sea otters and their entire food web. People hunted sea otters to the point of near extinction. Sea otters are top predators, or apex predators. They eat meat at the top of the local food chain. Removing sea otters from their environment changed the ecosystem in a negative way. It had lingering effects on the food web, and sea otter populations have had a hard time rebounding. This is just one example of how humans have altered the complicated ecosystems. In many cases, overhunting has left top predators unable to regain their position in the ecosystem. Changing an entire ecosystem. Due to overhunting, the sea otter population off the California coast dropped from more than 10,000 in the 1700s to fewer than 100 by the early 1900s. Today, American society has changed to value conservation efforts, and people are interested in preserving and reintroducing predators that were once hunted. However, the damage to ecosystems has taken its toll. When the otter population dropped, it started a chain of events that changed the region's food web. With no otters to eat them, populations of sea urchins and other marine invertebrates exploded. The sea urchins ate huge forests of kelp, a type of seaweed. Many fish and other marine animals rely on kelp for shelter. The loss of the kelp forests forced these fish into different habitats. Due to the absence of sea otters, the ecosystem became much less diverse. It also resulted in a trophic cascade, which is when a top predator is either added or removed from an ecosystem. This affects the population of its prey and other organisms in a food web. When a top predator is removed, everything else will be affected in some way. Changing populations of prey. A decline in the gray wolf population had a similar effect in the American Northwest. In the 1900s, settlers competed with wolves for large prey such as bison and elk, and hungry wolves began to eat livestock. Ranchers started to hunt the wolves to protect their livestock. The loss of wolves led to an explosion in the population of elks. The elks overgrazed plants and immature trees. This loss of vegetation hurt beaver and bird populations. Without enough plants to hold the soil together or shade the ground, riverbanks eroded. Water temperatures changed due to the less shading. Reintroduction can help ecosystems. Scientists have learned more about trophic cascades, and they started to reintroduce some top predators back into the ecosystems. For example, the National Park Service reintroduced reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone National Park in the 1990s. The wolves made a dramatic change in some aspects of the food web and ecosystem. Elk populations decreased. Small animal populations increased, and there was more plant growth. In Yellowstone, the reintroduction of top predators has been largely successful. In the case of the sea otter and other recent examples, bringing back the predators has been more complicated. Thanks to the reintroduction of sea otters in California, there are now almost 3,000 sea otters compared to fewer than 100 a century ago. However, the otters have not expanded their range. Ecosystem changes may be to blame. During the long absence of sea otters, the kelp forests disappeared. When otters today swim into these empty areas, sharks easily spot them and catch them. However, the reintroduction of otters in Alaska has been more successful. There, sea urchins are decreasing, kelp forests are expanding, and the marine biodiversity is increasing. The results are not always successful. The reintroduction of predators has had less successful results. For example, people reintroduced wild dogs to various parts of Africa where they were once predators. But trophic cascades did not occur, and the ecosystems did not become more stable. People also reintroduced brown bears in the Pyrenees mountain range in Europe. The concerning result was that the bears attacked the livestock. Trophic cascades are complicated. The ways in which predators affect their ecosystems and food webs are also unpredictable. Reintroducing top predators might not always solve an ecosystem's problems.